How come nobody has ever taught you what Thomas Jefferson wrote in the first draft of the Declaration of Independence, where he is making an impassioned plea to stop slavery?
I don't know why I was never told that, but I'm gonna go out on a limb before I ever hear this and guess it's probably on purpose. You've heard it said, history is written by the winners, but as simplistic and right feeling that quote sounds, let me tell you, it's just not true. Sometimes history is written by the losers, and other times it's manipulated by the winners. Because in reality, how history is written, how history is remembered, depends on the common person. If the common person pays attention, if the common person actually remains informed, actually tries to learn, tries to understand what really happened in real time, and tries to preserve that, then historians can't just make up whatever they want. Professors can't selectively give you history they want you to know about and throw everything else aside. But in this case, our history has been selectively changed. Our common culture purposefully has forgotten the truth. Why, you may ask? I can give you many reasons. Perhaps it's because of the communists that came over from the Soviet Union and decided to infiltrate us over the course of decades. Perhaps it's because the Marxists and progressives from the early 1900s till now deciding to embed themselves in academia and government to bring about a world fashioned after their own desire. Or perhaps it's because of all those nice little scientists we brought over from Germany after World War II. Or maybe it's because of those confounded Confederates after the war just couldn't let go of their perfect South. I could probably give you 4 or 5 other reasons. Maybe it's none of them, maybe it's all of them combined, maybe it's a giant conspiracy, or maybe people are just lazy and don't really want to know the truth. But alas, here we are, in my opinion, at a crisis of meaning in this country where, for a lot of people, this just won't fly anymore.
How come nobody has ever taught you what Thomas Jefferson wrote in the first draft of the Declaration of Independence, where he is making an impassioned plea to stop slavery?
Yes. This history has been selectively taken from you. It's not a coincidence that every time you want to talk about the founders, people are going to say,
how can you possibly listen to Thomas Jefferson say all men are created equal when he had slaves? He didn't really believe that.
I don't know how to answer that, but you will now. This is the last usurpation. His handwriting even changes when he writes this. And he, the king, has waged a cruel war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life and liberty in the persons of a distant people who never offended him, taking their life and liberty and captivating and carrying them into slavery in another hemisphere, or to incur miserable death in their transportation. This piratical warfare, the opprobrium of infidel powers underlined, is the warfare of the printed out, not in script, printed out, underline, and bold, Christian king.
Thomas Jefferson is boldly pointing out slavery is against Christianity. Now today, you hear people going, oh, people use Christianity to say that slavery was good. People justified all kinds of things under the guise of religion. Religion's bad, religion bad, Christianity bad. Here you have one of the founders directly saying, you're supposed to be a Christian and you are the one taking these slaves? That's not acceptable.
This is piratical. Who were the pirates? The pirates of the time were the Muslim pirates that believed if they conquered you, they could take you as a slave if you were an infidel. This is piratical warfare.
He's compared the King of England to Muslim pirates, the ones who, frankly, were mostly responsible for the slave trade at the time in the first place. But viewer, realize how much of an insult that really is to a Christian king.
Then he goes in to how many times they had tried to stop this. It's the most incredible thing I've ever read. How come you don't know that?
Because they're not interested in the truth. And that's the reality. Whenever some leftist decides to moralize about the evils of America and how terrible this country has been, and how, we need to celebrate Juneteenth because America wasn't meant for all people. Just realize they don't know this history, but even more so, they don't care about this history. It doesn't mean anything to them.
Why hasn't a teacher or a professor had the guts to show you the truth? I want you to Google first draft of the Declaration of Independence. It's right there. It's easy to find. Why has it remained hidden from us? Why did I have to wait 50 years before I knew the truth of Thomas Jefferson?
The lie that our founders were racist slave owners, is convenient to them because it's a means to an end. It's a means to have power in a culture. It's a means to have power over people who consider themselves on the right. It's a means to continue grievance and race politics. The truth doesn't matter because the truth is inconvenient. When we look back over history and we see thousands of years of slavery, thousands of years of people conquering one another and going, hey, I don't really want to build that house. You're gonna build it. When we look back on that, and then we see at one point in history, all of a sudden, one big superpower decided to say, yeah, we're not doing that. It's simpler to just ignore all that history and say, oh, that superpower, the United States, was bad because it had slavery in it. But the reality is, slavery has been a common thing. And slavery has been a common thing because life sucks. Before the advent of machinery and before the advent of the technology we have now, there were only 3 ways to survive or to really make it. Nature is harsh. Life is harsh. Survival for all of humanity has been difficult. So you either, one, had to have some really great natural resource or something really good about your geography that allowed you to trade with lots of different tribes and countries, so then you got lots of money. 2, you go out there and do the work yourself, and who wants to do that? Or 3, you just conquer your neighbor and make him do it for you. So congratulations, slavery was invented. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why. Oh look, I invented pointy stick. My stick pointier than your stick. Go dig a trench. It's really that simple. In fact, want to know something else interesting? Thomas Jefferson, when he was writing a Declaration of Independence, had actually referenced John Locke in his 1689 work, The Two Treatises of Government. He wrote the phrase, life, liberty, and estate as the fundamental natural rights that people are entitled to and that a government's purpose is to protect. Now you might think, of course, that makes sense. The government's purpose is to protect your life? Yeah, want to make sure that you and I can survive and don't face any common overt threats, externally or internally. It's supposed to protect your liberty, be able to make choices and move freely and worship as you desire. And estate. Estate. That's an interesting word. Estate. An extensive area of land in the country, usually with a large house, owned by one person, family, or organization. All the money and property owned by a particular person, especially at death. The government is supposed to guarantee the safety of your possessions, so that you can pass them on to your offspring. There's something very interesting is, Thomas Jefferson actually changed this when he wrote in the Declaration of Independence. He initially wrote life, liberty, and property, with property being approximately a synonym for estate. But he changed that in the later drafts to pursuit of happiness. Can you guess why? That's right, he changed it because some states think that slaves are property, and they would think that the government would then guarantee their right to own slaves as property. So in the creation of the Declaration of Independence, slavery was specifically thought of because these people were revolutionaries. The good kind of revolutionaries, not whatever is happening in Oregon and Chicago right now, where they're running naked in the street. I don't even know what that's about. They genuinely wanted to create a good country. They wanted to create a country where everyone was free.
Because when the draft was read in front of the Continental Congress, remember, every line had to be voted on, and it had to be unanimous. When they got to this part, out of the 13 colonies, remember, all these colonies were all racist. All we want to do is entrap and enslave the black man or anybody who isn't white and just get rich. Out of the 13 colonies, how many voted against this paragraph? 2. That means 11 said stop slavery right now. 2. Georgia and South Carolina, where the Civil War started.
Now there are other proofs that all the founders weren't just a bunch of racist slave owners, such as some say that George Washington was a slave owner, therefore he was bad as a founder, which isn't true entirely. If I remember correctly, it was George Washington and Thomas Jefferson who, by their own state laws, were not able to get rid of their slaves until after their death. And one of them actually couldn't get rid of the slave until after both the death of he and his surviving relatives, so that included his spouse. And if you've ever seen this painting before, Crossing the Delaware, if you ever actually pay close attention, you'll notice that one of the people in the painting are black. Didn't know that, did you? His name is Prince Whipple, because the painter decided that it was important enough to actually have a black person in the painting, showing that the revolution was good and for all people. Now, something you have to understand, propaganda back then is in some ways like propaganda is now, and also not, because technology didn't move as fast. And so you really had to nail down all the details you wanted before sending it off. And in this case, the moment of George Washington crossing the Delaware was supposed to be memorialized, and something that they thought important enough to memorialize in this racist, bigoted country was a black man fighting alongside revolutionaries in the fight for American independence. So the next time someone comes to you and tells you we just live in a slave-owning, racist country, and somehow they conveniently forget about the 50s, 60s, and 70s, just remember that wasn't how the country was founded. And on top of that, we fought a giant war, one of the main points of which was actually slavery. Don't let people on the left take control of the conversation and just hold you hostage over the topic of race. Know your history, be prepared, and realize if you grew up in public school, you're probably taught a really sanitized version of American history. And by sanitized, I mean
you get nothing! You lose!
Tell me, dear viewer, are you going to homeschool your children so that they grow up knowing the truth about this country? Or are you going to take the time to teach them about our actual history? Show them the Declaration of Independence, and show them how the country isn't that bad, it never was. Or are you going to teach them the history of great leaders such as Frederick Douglass and George Washington, or even Booker T. Washington? Are you going to show them how the country was always about aspiring to our better selves? Are you going to teach them how the original progressives before leftists have completely hijacked that term and destroyed it with Marxism and, in my opinion, rebellion against God? The original progressives, the original people who wanted progress, wanted to aspire to find the eternal truths, wanted to evolve or progress from all the dross of hundreds and thousands of years of our human history and find what was honest, what was good, what was godly, and preserve that. The original actual progressive was the conservative. The original progressive was the one who wanted to preserve or conserve eternal truth. But now, instead of trying to find eternal truths, we've thrown away the idea of absolute morality, and we aspire to progress for progress's sake, allowing ourselves to be manipulated by our culture, our academia, and our media. Or are you just going to throw them to the wolves and let them learn whatever they want to in public school and in culture and in media and allow their mind to be perverted beyond redemption? In my opinion, the choice is clear. Take the time to teach your children, homeschool them, and if you can't homeschool them, put them in private school. Can't private school them? If you have to put them in public school, then at least take the time to teach your children the truth about our history. Our founders had not all been racist, and blacks were not all slaves. They were inventors, thinkers, men of integrity, and men of renown. It's a sad state the country is in, and I hope we can turn it around, because in my opinion, truth is something to aspire to. But if you like this kind of content, let me know. Normally I do cultural topics like this one, where I break down what's going on and try to evoke some kind of moral that no one is thinking about. But whether you go and binge watch every other video I ever created, or this is the only time you come by, I appreciate you stopping by, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye!